Alright, y'all know what it is. We got a new character in Wuthering Waves, and you know what that means. It's time to take a look at the most trusted tier list in the Wuthering Waves community, at least on the EN side of things, right? We're here again at Pridewind.gg, taking a look at the patch 2.1 part 2 tier list for Tower of Adversity. And so we're here because of Brandt, which is hold on, he did come out, right? Where's Brandt? Oh, bro, there he is. Oh man, man, what happened? He must have slipped and fell down a flight of stairs all the way down here to tier 1. Nah, he's here in tier 1 on their list, and there's plenty of good reason for that. We'll go into that in just a second. I first wanted to talk about a couple things. So you may have noticed that there's been some movement on the list, especially when you look at like Camellya getting dropped down from tier 0 to tier 0.5. You saw characters like Jian and Encore getting dropped down, a bunch of them. You saw Cheng-Li dropping down, and there's plenty of reasons for that. They've changed up the criteria, a bunch of different things on this list, and we're going to talk about that a little bit, as well as obviously Brandt coming out and some of the movement for some of these characters. I also wanted to point out that the main person that runs the Wuthering Waves like tier list or the Pridewind stuff here on this website actually got in direct contact with me in DMs, and we had a pretty good like back and forth just for a couple of messages. They let me know that I can come to them whenever I have any questions or anything about the list, and vice versa. It goes both ways. So they're taking a listen to what we have to say here, okay? So you guys let me know what you guys have to say about the list. Put it in the comments, etc., and we can relay anything to them if anything feels absolutely necessary, etc. But as you guys know, we remain unbiased here. However, I do want to say that the Pridewind cooked, okay? They definitely made some really big and important changes, I think, to this list that were definitely necessary, and they've been listening to a lot of player feedback and a lot of content creator feedback. For example, Jian got dropped down, but what did we say the last time we were here? Jian, if you drop him down, give him an expert tag. So for the first time since the game launched, they finally gave bro his expert tag, and if you basically play him really well and not just brain dead with heavy attacks, only just spamming the heavy attack button, then you can play him as a tier 0.5 character, which was a good addition to the guy. Cheng-Li, same sort of thing, except they gave her the expert +2 tag. Very interesting. This is the first time we've seen this, because if you play her really well, she plays like a tier 0 character, and she's an absolute monster. And if you play her like, you know, pretty darn well, you'll probably take her to a tier 0.5. But if you play her just sort of normal, sort of casual, she's going to play more of a tier 1 character. I like this because if you just read what the expert tag is doing here, you'll recognize that the placement is basically sort of versatile, right? She plays like a tier 1 as a baseline, but you can get her playing as a tier 0 with good investment and combat awareness. So let's take a look at the changelog to see what they decided to say about Brandt. Brandt added as a tier 1 character. Brandt's very strong. He welcomes quick swap with other mid-air characters, even though it's not necessary. His playstyle is straightforward, and he deals a ton of damage. Jesus Christ, it sounds exactly like something I would have said. He heals and shields your party. He has a great outro buff. So to summarize, all good things. However, a ton of his potential is locked behind his signature weapon. This is 100% true. It's even more so than Yinlin. Oh, that's crazy. Although that's honestly pretty... I do concur with that, actually. It offers him big amounts of energy regen that he needs, and a lot of extra damage on top of that. And we will be taking a look at his signature weapon, how good it is compared to other weapons, and also some calculations that they decided to provide here. This makes it the only weapon that really allows him to utilize his signature echo set, the Tide-Breaking Courage, while still being worth it for his total damage. With his weapon included, he'd likely land around tier 0.5. I can get behind that for sure. When you see how strong his weapon is, you'll probably agree with this. However, too much of his damage is locked behind it, so we're leaving him comfortably at tier 1. Note that this means he's still a very strong unit, just not a top tier 1. Now we'll take a look at his weapon in just a second here, but I wanted to quickly go over a few things before we get into the nitty-gritty with him. He's got cleave, right? He's got heal, he's got shield, he's got multi-roll. And because he is kind of like a healer slash shielder sort of style character, this means, of course, being the multi-roll character that he is, you can basically solidify the characters like Baija and you who recently got dropped down a single tier, they've now been solidified in that drop down. And the part of that was because of the Spectro Rover getting bumped up and being an actually really solid choice as a healer when, you know, Phoebe got introduced into the game, who's an absolute beast. But dude, you got Brandt here trying to do a whole lot. And do you guys remember Jianshin? Do you remember how versatile Jianshin was? So many people on launch were glazing her up and all of the different things that she can do, but look at where she stands now. She's down here at tier 2. You got Yang, who's doing better than her nowadays. My, how the tables have turned, right? Okay, so when you're trying to do everything, the thing is, you're never gonna be the best at anything, right? That's the unfortunate truth about characters that try to do too much. Most of them don't end up becoming like the best for a specific role in some cases. Now, that's not necessarily going to be the case for Brandt because he pairs really, really well with Chang Li. So the pairing of these two together, they're basically best in slot for each other to a degree. The thing about them being such good quick swap characters, though, is that they will actually potentially have stronger teams than each other. It's just clearly designed that they will work well with each other. But as we all know, Chang Li is going to pair really well on quick swap teams with, like, even Zhengli Yao, you know what I mean, with, you know, Jinshi. She's going to have so many different ways that she can be played that maybe the Brandt-Chang Li combo is not necessarily their best pairing for each other. Again, that multi-role thing where he's trying to do so much doesn't necessarily make him the best at any one particular thing. Now, again, he's kind of like, I wouldn't say he's Jianshin 2.0 in a way, but effectively it's kind of a similar situation where because he's a premium character that's trying to fit so many different roles, and he is a, 2.1 now character, he's going to be, I guess maybe you could call it power creep compared to Jianshin. So he's definitely a really fun character to use, an incredibly fun character. He is very, very strong, but this game doesn't really have power creep that much. As you can see, he's not landing up here at tier 0. Just because a new character comes out doesn't mean they're going to be a tier 0 or even tier 0.5. Just look at Rochia, just look at Brandt. Okay, these characters are only a patch apart from each other, and they both landing here at tier 1. Still good characters, but it lets us know that power creep in Wuthering Waves isn't going to be too big of a deal going forward, and I'm actually really happy about that. We'll talk about some other placements in a second. I wanted to talk about some more specifics with Brandt. Let's go to the weapon situation here. A lot of folks are going to be using Overture on this guy because of course they are. This provides a bunch of energy, and it's just a very, very good slot in for a character like this because he really, really needs energy, right? He really, really needs it. And you can see here his damage output as a result is not too bad, 98.62. A pretty decent score here, and it does really help you build the character because he needs so much energy regen. Now let's talk about the baseline, of course, is Emerald of Genesis, which does provide a ton of energy regen, very solid character. And this let's see here, when resonant skill is released, sorry. The combination of the energy regen, crit rate, and solid base attack make this weapon a standout choice for Brandt, and its small attack damage or percent damage bonus is also easily able to be worked into rotations, etc., etc. A top weapon option for Brandt, but one doesn't allow him to use his best echo set, Tide Breaking Courage, at S1 without other sources of energy regen. So definitely a bit of an issue for Brandt. He needs so much energy regen that even Emerald of Genesis is not necessarily the weapon you want to use on him. All right, now let's take a look at his signature weapon here, Unflickering Valor. It increases the crit rate by 8%, and casting his Resonance Liberation gives him 24% basic attack damage bonus for 10 seconds. Dealing basic attack damage gives 24% basic attack damage bonus for 4 seconds. Yeah, that's gonna be a lot of basic attack damage, bro. And it also gives him some pretty sick stats here. You have his attack of 415, respectable, and energy regen of 77%, which is astronomical. Let's read the description. Brandt's signature, and by far his best weapon, the massive energy regen, basic attack damage, and the small amount of crit rate boosts the weapon offers are all Brandt's top stats. Yeah, and even though it's a small amount of energy regen, or sorry, a small amount of crit rate to some people, that 8% is definitely going to come in handy for a lot of people while building the character. Crit rate especially is such a good, like, the character building stat to have on a weapon, allowing him to sport the Tide-Breaking Courage set comfortably. And this set is really, really important to building the character. You don't have to use it to build him and have him be impactful on your account, but you're gonna really want to be able to build this. And so the signature weapon is really, really strong because it allows him to do that. You have Overture, which is also going to allow him to do that. So if you guys have Overture, honestly, that's probably fine, right? This is based on R5, right? This is, what is it, energy regen of 51.8%. That's pretty solid for a 4-star weapon. But if you have Overture, you're probably good to go. But let's keep going with the signature weapon here. With a fusion damage bonus echo if you build his energy regen well. So you can go with the fusion damage bonus on your echoes if you are using this more comfortably, right? However, this sword isn't good on anyone else. Only pull it if you have Brandt, and if you do pull it, no, you'll only use it on him. Now, another character in the future could come out that it could work on, but I'll be honest with you, I do have access to the beta. And as far as I know, I mean, the beta doesn't give you that much, foresight into the future. I'll let you know so far, we don't have anybody that we know of that will be able to use this weapon besides him. So despite how strong it is for him, just be aware that you're basically only going to be able to use it on bro. And as you can see from the calculations that were made here to take a look at his duplicates, if you take him from S0 to S1, you don't really get a whole lot. I'm not going to lie, that's not some a massive amount of power spike there. You do get a pretty good amount from his S2. In fact, the difference between his S0 to his S1 is smaller than when you go from his S1 to his S2, which is kind of interesting. I think that's a rather noteworthy thing there, and I think it's just funny to take a look at his S3 and his S4 damage calculations are the exact same. I don't know if that's a goof up on their part or if the buff just doesn't really do anything. So I just wanted to show you guys that. And if you guys wanted to pause on screen for a second here, just take a look at that. This is the standard rotation that they were using in order to make these calculations in case you guys were trying to replicate this rotation for him. If you guys were looking for one and weren't using one of your own, for example. So you could take a look at this if you felt so inclined. So all things considered, Brandt is a very strong character. He's a very cool character, but he's definitely going to have his place in the meta. However, he's not necessarily going to be what maybe everybody was wanting or expecting. For example, a lot of people have been waiting for a really cool, fun male character to come out in the game. I mean, just take a look at this here. How many premium male characters have even released in this game? Well, there's none of them on screen here. You got to scroll down a little bit down to Zhangli Yao. You got Jian, and you got Brandt. That's it. 3 male characters total. And yeah, Jian started things off strong. He was the first premium character, and if you play him well, he's still a really strong character. And thankfully, Zhangli Yao was given to us for free, and he's an impactful, very strong character, the strongest electro character in the game right now as far as DPS is concerned, right? But I did want to point that out, that some people might be disappointed by him. He might not be what some of you are expecting. He's a little bit more niche for certain situations, like when you're talking about top-level play. But he's a fun quick swap character, and he'll definitely be impactful in the meta going forward. Maybe he just still needs a little bit more pieces to make him shine, or maybe some more weapon versatility, because right now he doesn't have a whole lot that allow him to really shine, especially when trying to use his best in slot echo set. Now, we did talk about some of the other character movements here, but I wanted to mention Mortefi, who they must be listening, bro, because I was talking about how he got bumped down, right? And then now he's getting bumped back up. So definitely some community feedback involved with that for sure, in bringing Mortefi back up, because although he is more niche, right, we're kind of in mostly a basic attack world right now. The fact that he's pretty much like the best hybrid character for heavy attacks, at least right now, is really, really impactful. Characters like Jian can really use the guy, and when played well, Jian's up here at tier 0.5, and his best in slot pairing is with Mortefi, who is already at 0.5, so this makes a whole lot of sense. he has other teams that he can work well on too, such as Phoebe, which in my opinion is probably the main reason why he got bumped back up to tier 0.5. Remember, he was dropped down to tier 1 at one point. Bringing him back up was important because if he can pair well with Phoebe and you have a Swanhua who you also can pair with Phoebe, well, you could also pair Swanhua with somebody like Camellya or any other character that really wants to have some basic attacks or maybe not that high of an amount of on-field time. Swanhua doesn't need to be on-field very much. This frees you up if you are using a Mortefi to have your Swanhua on other teams, if you can use Mortefi on a Phoebe team, for example. So Mortefi is definitely still an important character to have on your account built up if you haven't built him already. Very, very strong character. Super glad to see him get brought back up again. Now let's talk about Camellya, because some people are going to be pissed about this. But we talked about this the last time we were here. The problem with Camellya is that when enemies are in her range of her attacks, she's incredible. She absolutely busts everything up. But when enemies fall out of her range, it usually means a reset, because unfortunately, to get back into your rotation or to get them back into your zone takes a little bit too much and it slows you down. This does give the character a bit of a drawback, unfortunately. So when things are going well for you, she performs really, really strong, like up here at tier 0 in some cases. But the problem is that doesn't often happen the way you want, and so it does slow down her performance. And unfortunately, Tower of Adversity is time-gated. If we had forever, she would be a strong character, but we just don't, right? We are time-limited in Tower of Adversity, so it makes sense to see her get dropped down. Even though it is a bit weird to see Rover, like Havoc Rover, up here. One thing to remember, Rochia is a very strong buffer for Havoc Rover, not as good of a buffer for Camellya, at least in Tower of Adversity, right? However, when you go into Whimpering Wastes, look at Rochia. She has grouping, right? She has grouping, and this is an AoE or like a grouping type of meta for Whimpering Waste. So she shines like a beacon of light in the dark in a world like this. Just look at Jian getting all the way up here to tier 0. So these wide range of effect characters, they are very strong in something like Whimpering Wastes, but in Tower, you know, they don't necessarily get to shine as much as we like, because enemies might fall out of your range, and it just isn't fun when that happens. Now, briefly, let's just go ahead and mention the other things we didn't get to yet. We have Kuro here, which also has the Expert +2 tag. When you play Bro really, really well, you can take him all the way to tier 1 to hang out with Encore and Jian. However, if you can play Kuro well, you can probably play Jian well, and he's going to actually be up here at tier 0.5, but that's beside the point. Kuro, unfortunately, when you can't utilize him as well as he can be utilized, it just falls off. His damage just isn't really there. When you play him well, he does perform very, very solidly. Encore, like I was saying, unfortunately, just doesn't have the juice as much as Jian does. When you play Jian Super Omega well, he performs just a little bit better than Encore. We were talking about this last time, so I'm really glad to see that they really are listening to the content creator and the player feedback here at Pridewin. The list has been getting better and better. You know, we criticize Pridewin a whole lot here on this channel when we do these tier list videos, because the thing about a tier list is that it's controversial. It's all opinion-based, and opinions are different. Oh, geez, and before I forget, we have Yang Yang down here at tier 0.5. She also has the Expert +1 tag now, so when you play her well, you can bring her up here to tier 1 to hang out with some of these other strong characters, such as Yinlin, who Yinlin's placement might piss some of you guys off, but remember, with the addition of so many other hybrid style or sub-DPS style characters, there's just simply less room, and she becomes a bit more niche. She's not one of the only sub-DPS characters in the game now, so her value starts to drop a little bit as a result of that. She's still incredibly strong with certain characters like Zhangli Yao, and maybe we'll see her get brought back up again if more characters release with more synergies with her, but for now, seeing her down here at tier 1 isn't really that bad of a thing. And that's basically the rest of everybody on the list. So if you guys like this kind of stuff, consider leaving a like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.